Reserva Federal, porque eso es lo que se espera. Así que en los próximos minutos vamos a indagar un poco más en lo que podemos esperar de hoy. Fed, por cierto, 7:30 de la tarde comenzará aquí, ya lo saben, especial en Negocios Televisión para avanzarnos a lo que pueda decir hoy Jerome Powell, y mañana Banco Central Europeo. Hablamos de todo esto con Ombretta Signori, Head of Macro and Strategy of Investment Asset Management. Ombretta, thank you so much for being in Negocios Televisión. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The Federal Reserve is deciding today, and everyone, Ombretta, is expecting a 25 basis points hike, but also Powell signaling a pause in the rate hikes. Do you think that this will happen today?
It is our base case, in fact. We do think they will deliver a last 25 basis points, but I think that for the markets, beyond the decision, the most important thing to look is the message that the president of the Fed will deliver. And on that point, our view is that the Fed will try not to pre-commit on any move beyond this month, and especially in the view of what is happening these days in the US banks. So they will take a pause, possibly a conditional pause, which means that the key variables to look at going forward are, of course, credit conditions related to what is happening, and the second key variable is still inflation. In that sense, we think that the Fed will keep a hawkish bias going on.
Ombretta, do you believe it will be hard for Powell to make sure that markets don't believe that a pause in rate hikes is basically a synonym for rate cuts?
Well, as I said, we don't think that the Fed will pre-commit in any move, but they will keep optionality open, which means that barring any systemic risk growing farther, we think that the Fed will stay on pause. And on that, it is very clear that the disinflation path has started, but it is only in the early stages. And while you look, for instance, at the labor market, it is very solid still, and the core inflation, which is the key variable now that the Fed will monitor, yes, it has started to decelerate, but it is still very uncomfortable level for the Fed, and that is why we think that the Fed will keep an hawkish bias, and probably the market will keep all the optionality opens. But anyway, we think that the 2 or almost 3 rate cuts that is priced now from the market is exaggerated on our view if we bear any systematic risk.
Ombretta, a different thing is what is going to happen with the ECB, the European Central Bank, tomorrow. What are you expecting from the ECB?
Well, there is a difference between the two central banks. The first is that probably the Fed tonight will discuss between 0 and 25 basis point hike, while from the point of view of the ECB, the discussion will be probably between 25 or 50 basis points, which means that the ECB is probably going to act tomorrow by 25 basis points. This is our base case, but it will not be done. Probably there are another 2 or 3 rate hikes by this summer, and this is because the ECB and the inflation path in the Eurozone is in some kind delayed with respect to the US. If you take the core inflation in Euro area, it has not yet peaked. And if you look at service inflation, which is still the key variable for the Eurozone, it is still increasing. And if you look at wage developments, if you look at in the US, the wage momentum has already started to moderate. It is not the case in Eurozone. Wage dynamics are still catching up with inflation, and that is why the ECB is not probably end and done with rate hikes tomorrow, and so the bias will be maintained very hawkish. There are probably some hikes going further, but yeah, the bulk of the monetary tightening is behind us. So we still see 2 or 3 hikes, and then the ECB will stay on hold at least for the rest of the year.
I guess you believe then that the Federal Reserve will pause rate hikes before the ECB does the same thing?
We think that the Fed will pause after tonight's decision, and then indeed the ECB will probably hike 2 or 3 more times and possibly pause afterwards, keeping the interest rates in very restrictive territory for a considerable period of time, at least for the rest of this year.
Signori, Head of Macro and Strategy of Investment Asset Management, thank you so much for being in Negocios Televisión. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
Bueno, y nosotros